Hello, everyone. Brendan Jones here with 0 Point University, and today we're going to be breaking down House Joint Resolution 192, 73-10, and how it pertains to the secure party creditor process and ultimately the process of discharging debt and freeing yourself from the commercial space which has infested us with a sort of bamboozlement. So let's jump right into it. So, first things first. We're going to start here with the resolution. Joint resolution. To assure uniform value to the coins and currencies of the United States. Whereas the holding of or dealing in gold affect the public interest and are therefore subject to proper regulation and restriction. And whereas the existing emergency has disclosed that provisions of obligations which purport to give the obligee a right to require payment in gold or a particular kind of coin or currency of the United States or in an amount in money of the United States measured thereby obstruct the power of the Congress to regulate the value of the money of the United States and are inconsistent with the declared policy of the Congress to maintain at all times the equal power of every dollar coined or issued by the United States in the markets and in the payment of debts. Now, therefore be it resolved by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America, assembled, that every provision contained in or made with respect to any obligation which purports to give the obligee a right to require payment in gold or a particular kind of coin or currency, or in an amount in money of the United States measured thereby, is declared to be against public policy, and no such provision shall be contained in or made with respect to any obligation hereafter incurred. Every obligation, heretofore or hereafter incurred, whether or not any such provision is contained therein or made with respect thereto, shall be discharged upon payment, dollar for dollar, in any coin or currency which at the time of payment is legal tender for public and private debts. Any such provision contained in any law authorizing obligations to be issued by or under authority of the United States is hereby repealed, but the repeal of any such provision shall not invalidate any other provision or authority contained in such law. And this goes into the terms obligation. Means payable in money of the United States, and the term coin or currency means coin or currency of the United States, including Federal Reserve notes and circulating notes of Federal Reserve banks and national banking associations. This part here redefines some of the terms in a previous act. Okay, approved May 12th. As you can see, this was an act to relieve existing national economic emergency known as the Great Depression. Okay, so let's go back. Now that we've read through it, let's go back and just break this down real quick. So the purpose of this resolution is to assure uniform value to the coins and currencies of the United States. Okay, so we look here, uniform. So this is all from Black's Law Dictionary, 1933, 4th edition. So this is the same words, the meanings of the words that were used during the time that this resolution was passed. So uniform means conforming to one rule, mode, or unvarying standard, not different at different times or places, applicable to all places or divisions of a country. So that means everybody who's a part of the United States, meaning all 50 states that are in contract with the federal government, the value of their currency will be made uniform. Okay? Let's keep going. So, here in this first paragraph, they explain that the dealing in gold and the use of gold in terms of a applicable currency in the United States is now obstructing the Congress's ability to control the value of the money in the United States. Okay? So Congress here has said that anybody that puts required payment in gold or particular kind of coin or currency, it obstructs the power of the Congress. So that means no longer can obligees, meaning people who send you a bill, no longer can they actually require that you pay them in a particular kind of currency. Okay? So every provision contained in or made with respect to any obligation. Okay, provision means any, what's a good word for it? Provision means any condition. Any condition. And so, obligation. That which constitutes a legal or moral duty and which renders a person liable to coercion or punishment for neglecting it. A word of broad meaning, and the particular meaning intended is to be gained by consideration of its context. An obligation or debt may exist by reason of a judgment as well as an express contract. In either case, there being a legal duty on the part of the one bound to comply with the promise. Okay, so what that means is an obligation means any sort of, you can call it a bill of sale, a receipt. It's a very broad and general statement. And so they use that statement on purpose, meaning any debt note, any promise of payment, anything like that is considered an obligation. So, no longer do they have a right to require payment in gold or particular kind of currency. It's declared to be against public policy. So no longer shall any obligation contain such provisions. No longer can any bill contain a requirement that you pay in a particular kind of currency. Payments are to be made in legal tender. So every obligation, whether or not any such provision is contained therein, shall be discharged upon payment. So every obligation, regardless if they have any sort of provision that says that you are required to pay in a particular kind of currency, shall be discharged upon payment, dollar for dollar. Meaning, after you pay such a provision, after you pay such an obligation, it'll be discharged in any coin or currency which at the time of payment is legal tender for public and private debts. Meaning you will be given whatever is considered legal tender at the time, dollar for dollar. Okay? So let's go into shortly what legal tender means. Tender is an offer of money. It offers to a person holding a claim or demand against him the amount of money which he considers and admits to be due. So that means you will be granted the same dollar for dollar, face value, the same amount of money or equivalent amount in money of whatever bill you paid which contained or did not contain a provision that requires a payment in currency. So legal tender is that kind of coin, money, or circulating medium which the law compels a creditor to accept in payment of his debt when tendered by the debtor in the right amount. So this means you will receive a legal tender and discharging of debt if you are a creditor. The creditor is compelled to accept the payment of his debt. Understand? So when you receive a receipt or a bill, okay, that is a debt. That is a sum due. And so the Congress will actually, So here's the definition. So Congress will actually give you dollars in acceptance of that payment of debt. Because when let's say you go to the grocery store and you buy $100 worth of groceries, you have a receipt that says $100, amount due $100. Okay, you will send that in to Congress. Okay, and how you do that is through the IRS. We're going to go into that in a second. But the IRS is a creature of the Congress. Okay, it's a bureau of the Treasury. So this is where the IRS comes into play. You will actually audit the institution with which created the obligation, and the debt will be discharged. And you will be given legal tender dollar for dollar upon payment of said debt. Okay? So, in order to do this, you have to be a creditor. So what does it mean to be a creditor? A person to whom debt is owing by another person who is the debtor. One who has a right to require the fulfillment of an obligation or contract. Okay? And a debtor is one who owes debt, he who may be compelled to pay a claim or demand. Okay, this is your legal name, your fictional name, your straw man, your all capital name. This is the name found on your birth certificate. It's synonymous with obligor, and a creditor is synonymous with obligee. Okay. So, let's look at the resolution one more time. So, obligation means an obligation payable in money of the United States. And the term coin or currency means coin or currency of the United States, including Federal Reserve notes and circulating notes of Federal Reserve banks and national banking associations. So, obligation means an obligation payable in money, means any bill. Okay. And so this is the resolution that got us off the gold standard. Okay. Very important. So let's look at a little bit of background so that we understand why exactly was this done. Why did Congress do this, where they promised the United States people that they would discharge their debt dollar for dollar? And here's some more definitions. So we're going to go back to the Revenue Act of 1862. This is actually Abraham Lincoln created a bill, and it was passed by Congress to create the Commissioner of Internal Revenue. And when he did so, the 16th Amendment was created shortly after, which ratified Congress to impose a tax on income and create the Bureau of Internal Revenue, which was later renamed the IRS. And according to the 16th Amendment, the Congress shall have power. According to the 16th Amendment, the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration. Okay? And so when this amendment was passed, this allowed the United States to have complete control over who and what they tax. And so now they're making an obligation that requires a form of payment in a particular kind of currency, something that can be discharged. So you would send in a 1099 of whatever bill you paid. You'd send that to the IRS, who is a creature of the Congress. Congress created this bureau, this Internal Revenue Service. Okay, you send it in, and Congress will discharge it dollar for dollar. There's a tax refundable purchase so long as you're a creditor. Okay, and the reason they did this is because under the Executive Order 6102, the President issued on April 5th that all persons, okay, persons, not men and women, persons, this means birth certificate names, birth certificate people whose names, their body, and their soul are registered under the Department of Vital Statistics. Okay, we're going to get into that in just a second. on or before May 1st, all gold, coins, bullions, and certificates now owned by them to a Federal Reserve Bank. They are going to be delivered to this Federal Reserve Bank. You understand? So, now there's no such thing as real money anymore. Ever since this House Joint Resolution was passed, no money exists. And before we go, I want to go into what persons, why this is very important. This applies to persons. We're going to go to U.S. Code. We're going to go to U.S. Code. This is U.S. Code Title 1, Subsection 1. And right here, the words person and whoever include corporations, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, and joint stock companies, as well as individuals. Okay? So when they talk about person, they're talking about a corporation. They're talking about a fictional entity. A corporation is not a real entity. It's made up on paper. So you'll notice the language in the law that they use the word persons, individuals, citizens. These words apply to the debtor, okay? But when you become a creditor, you separate yourself from this entity. You indemnify the entity, you protect it from injury, but you do not you don't identify as the debtor. You are not this. You are not your birth certificate name. You are not your legal name. You are not your all capital name. And so through the secure party creditor process, through filing the proper paperwork, you can actually have your debts discharged. You can not only have your debts discharged, you can be reimbursed for any payment you made to any of these institutions. Now understand this is an auditing process, meaning if you go to a local mom and pop shop and you buy everything from their store and then audit them, you basically take them out of business. So this is not meant to just say that everything you do is completely free now. But what this means is that you as a creditor can audit these companies and get reimbursed for all of your private expenses. Now it requires that you have the proper paperwork filled out, which is what we supply at 0 Point University. Okay? So, thank you all very much for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about how this applies to us and what steps you can do to take to become a creditor and to discharge your debt, get reimbursed for all your expenses, and learn how to operate and function as a creditor, click on the links in the description below to sign up for our courses, the Secure Party Creditor course and the Status Correction Master Guide. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.